Hello, I'm Harold, and today we are on the road with a real cool 1993 Geo Tracker. A throwback to the 90s and cars that were pink and yellow and turquoise. This is a Radwood special that if you take to Cars and Coffee is going to get lots of looks and lots of thumbs up. So let's talk about this adorable little vehicle, its history. We'll do a walk around on the outside and inside. We'll check some other features of it, then we'll take it for a drive. Lastly, we will wrap up and talk about what we have from the vehicle, lessons learned, and my experience with it, and then we'll wrap up. So let's get started. So a little history here. The Geo Tracker, like all of Geo, was an offshoot of General Motors from '89 to 1997. Where the Geo line was reabsorbed back into Chevrolet, and it was used to bring in a lot of Japanese vehicles. This case, the Geo Tracker's sibling was a Suzuki Sidekick, where they could get better gas mileage and introduce imports to the American market. So in this car's case, the Geo Tracker was made from '89 to '97, looking a lot like you see here, with a short period where it was made in pink, turquoise, purple, kind of an aqua green, and they would have similar colored stripes, such as the pink ones here. These vehicles were a real unique piece of their time. This is certainly a similar vehicle to the Suzuki Samurai or Jeep Wranglers of their time. You certainly don't see a lot of these anymore. I remember them being towed behind motorhomes. You'd see them in beach communities, and they certainly were a lot of fun, but unfortunately, they did not stand the test of time. So this one here has 64,000 miles on it and was in a barn for many years. So it's a great example of what they were like in the 90s and how it looks today. So let's do an exterior walk around and we'll talk a little bit about some of its unique features, and then we'll go to the interior. So let's get started. Starting with the exterior, it's certainly a throwback to its time. Back in the 90s, you did see quite a few of these types of vehicles around. From the Suzuki Sidekick, the Suzuki Samurai, the Jeep Wrangler. There was even Mitsubishi, Dodge, and other spin-offs of vehicles very similar to this that were competing in a market of fun runabouts. This one, of course, being a General Motors import, has a couple of GM features to it, but more or less, it is simply a Suzuki Sidekick. One of the unique features, I think, is the spare tire cover. And I say that because I certainly don't know where you'd find another one if you lost it. It's made of plastic and is fastened reasonably securely, but is a little bit flimsy. Everything else about the interior, the top is reasonably simple to open and close once you get used to it. It's a vinyl top. They were available with a fiberglass top. I've seen a few of them here and there, but more often than not, this is the way you see them. This one in particular is being yellow, is kind of in that time of yellow, pinks, turquoises, and etc. that kind of came and went in the mid-90s. Kind of makes it a little bit more unique, but otherwise it is really in the same family as a Suzuki Sidekick and a unique little vehicle when you drive around. You get a lot of thumbs up and a lot of waves, and some people talking about, man, I remember those when I saw them. Well, I remember them too. So let's take a look at the interior from here and discuss the rest of the vehicle. So moving toward the interior, you can absolutely see that this car is a throwback to the 90s. Everything from the very simple gauge cluster you see here to the center stack, which has a tape deck, which works quite well, cigarette lighter, very basic automatic transmission, four-wheel drive shifter, vinyl door panels, and as many of people of the younger generation notice, window cranks, which was really normal for this car, but for today's standards, you would expect to not see those very often at all. The back seat, surprisingly roomy. It does fold down, and it does have shoulder belts, as you can see there, and it, when folded down, creates a small cargo area. The seat inserts are of kind of a water resistant sort of fabric, and they definitely set off with the yellow exterior of the car to create a pretty fun, happy image of a vehicle that looks like it belongs in a beach community and having a good time. So let's take a look at the car under the hood now. So here we are, the 1.6 liter 4-cylinder motor that it shared with the Suzuki Sidekick. This little motor is coupled up to a 3-speed automatic transmission. A lot of them actually had a 5-speed, but the automatic was certainly an option, and also was found in some of the Suzukis. This motor's relation to Suzuki is so noticeable that they didn't even bother to change any of the decals for smogging it. This one is about as clean as I have ever seen one though. And if you were ever wondering what they looked like when they rolled out of the factory, this one comes right down practically to the decals as to what it looks like. I think you could probably call the motor peppy to a degree, but with the automatic it is rather slow, and it's certainly not a freeway car. People do tend to love them though, taking them off-road from what I have seen in a lot of other videos. So it certainly does have some capability there. So let's wrap up here and not just look at the engine, but let's see how it drives. So let's get out on the road. So out on the road with the Geo Tracker. It's a reasonably smooth driving vehicle if you give it the credit it's due for the time at which it was made. It's certainly no modern day Wrangler with 300 horsepower plus. It's certainly at its time with 80 horsepower was not going to be going a lot of freeway distances or doing a lot of commuting. These were really great runabouts to go around neighborhoods, to go to the beach, to go in the hills, short trips to the store. It's really what something like this was meant to be. Even with speed bumps like this here, it does reasonably fine. And it's really calm at about 45 or so miles an hour or less. So it's kind of nice on a sunny day like this one to take it out for a cruise. And I know a lot of people have enjoyed riding in the vehicle. Kids and everybody get pretty excited about it. It gets some funny names like Barbie car and a toy. I've seen a lot of thumbs up. A lot of people call it rad and awesome and remember the times at which these things were new. So I think from that driving perspective, that's the best way to enjoy it, is just cruise it. And in that, it kind of delivers real well. With the top off, it is of course windy, like you would expect it to be, like any Wrangler or convertible top vehicle. I don't think it's exorbitantly noisy. The stereo that's in it is totally period for the time. I personally would never change it. A Geo tape deck by AC Delco is about as old school as it gets for something like this. So we're gonna go up a little bit here. We're gonna accelerate at full speed to get up close to freeway speed, and then we're going to wrap up the drive. So as we come up this little ramp here, I'm going to floor it from here. And that's pretty much all it's got. It's working hard. It's certainly trying to get up to speed. But a 3-speed automatic is limiting. So we're doing about 55 now at just under 4,000 RPM. I wouldn't call it terribly noisy. I mean, to today's standards, certainly in whisper quiet vehicles it is, but it's an open top convertible. So you give it a lot of leeway for that, and it drives fine. How are the brakes? Well, the brakes work okay. It's certainly something you plan ahead when you're gonna make a stop. As you can see, I'm still at 3,000 RPM at about 47 miles an hour, and that's really top gear, all it's got. I would imagine in the hills, it probably would have some good low-end grunt, and that would make it really handy for that, and being a little bit of a billy goat and climbing over boulders and small hills. It does have a pretty good entry and exit angle, at least from my non-4-wheel drive experience. It certainly doesn't have a lot hanging over the front or rear, so I would imagine it would be really good in those types of scenarios. This one has street tires on it, so it's certainly not ready for any off-road use, but it's certainly fine for what it does. So that's about it for the drive. I certainly hope that you've enjoyed it, and we're going to wrap up from here. So that's it for the 1993 Geo Tracker. I hope you enjoyed the video. We take a look at the outside, the inside, the engine, and we drove it. This is a fun little vehicle from the 90s. It's certainly not fast, and you'd better not be in a hurry if you're trying to get somewhere. But if you're looking for a cool runabout, or if you're just wondering how it was back in the 90s to drive a vehicle like this, I hope you found this video enjoyable. Anyway, I'm going to get back out on the road, so please make sure you like, subscribe, and leave comments. And we'll see you next time. Take care.